Welcome to the latest episode of CarePoints. I'm your host, Kenny Schiff, Director of Marketing for Lone Star Communications' new Alero business unit. Today's episode is part of my continuing series of conversations with my collaborators with Lone Star, customers, partners, and notable folks in the tech industry. It is my pleasure to interview Peter Kraslawsky, Manager of Strategic Partnerships for Stryker, and one of my colleagues at Lone Star, Jonathon Murphy, who is one of our educational technology innovation specialists. Welcome, Jonathon. Welcome, Peter.
Thank you, Kenny. Great to be here.
So let me set up this episode. Since its founding in 1991, Lone Star Communications has been providing life safety communications and instructional technology solutions to K-12 and higher education institutions. The Lone Star formula is to provide innovative technologies, expert guidance, and ongoing services to meet the unique needs of the market. That legacy of excellence has led to a collaboration with Stryker to provide a unique integration between Stryker's Vocera wearable mobility platform and Lone Star's flagship educational platform, Rauland's Telecenter U. The integration builds off of a standard communications technology and gives educators and administrators the ability to go beyond walkie-talkies and panic buttons. The integration creates an ecosystem that handles core communications, allows staff to connect and notify from classrooms and elsewhere. Let's go to Jonathon and Peter to find out more about the partnership. And I'm going to start with Peter. Peter, Stryker and Vocera technology, it's been a true pioneer in the wearable speech-enabled communications space since its founding in 2000. Long before Alexa, Siri, or smartphones, Vocera has been crafting faster and more efficient ways to provide one-to-one and one-to-many communication. Many of us know the Vocera product line and platform through its success in the healthcare industry. Let's start by having you give an overview of the Vocera solution as it's applied to the educational markets. In some ways, the needs are similar, but they're also different. So, Peter.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kenny. I appreciate the time. So, Kenny, you really said that well. So, Stryker has acquired the Vocera solution back in 2021, and all the success that we had in the healthcare space, we started to see, of course, just like everybody in the country, started to see what was happening in education and thought there was a very clear parallel between how Vocera has been a solution that has been saving patients and protecting nurses for years, and into the education space as an opportunity to protect students and teachers in critical emergency environments. But not only that, what Vocera is able to do, it's not just this, like you said, not just a panic button. It moves beyond the capacity of the panic button or the walkie-talkie by really being this everyday solution that can be used for calling somebody by their name, calling somebody by their role, broadcasting. So you have it as an everyday solution in addition to an emergency situation.
Great. So I'm going to go to Jonathon. You visit small and large educational institutions every day. What are you hearing from administrators and staff regarding the limitations of traditional communication and life safety platforms that has led Lone Star to the partnership with Stryker and the Vocera product?
Thank you, Kenny. What I'm hearing most of the time is what if? What if something happens in the cafeteria, we need to initiate a lockdown, or even out on the playground where there are no phones. Sometimes they have a walkie-talkie out there, but there's no panic buttons for sure out at a playground. And in a lot of cases, they're not in cafeterias or gyms in some cases. So the ability to have mobility is where they're most concerned now is how do I initiate this lockdown from anywhere? And that's where the Vocera solution comes into play.
Yeah, so now I'm going to have you walk through the building blocks of the solution, and where does the conventional communication end, and where does it get supercharged by the Stryker Vocera combination? And talk about the handoff between the systems, and then we'll have Peter talk about the Vocera side of the integration.
Sure. So where the traditional communication system ends, it's hardwired. That has always been the traditional method. The school intercom system it's always tied to a particular location. That means the end user, the teacher, the staff member is also tied to a specific location, whether it be a phone on their desk or a panic button on the wall. And where Vocera comes into play, again, it offers that mobility. They're not tied to any one location. And not only that, but the ability to know the location of the end user when something happens is also part of the solution.
So let's have you talk about the kind of steps of the workflow, and then we'll hand it off to Peter to talk about the Vocera side. So you sent me some use case diagrams earlier to kind of describe the different situations and how the conventional communication would work in conjunction with the Stryker Vocera mobility stuff.
So it begins with the Vocera badge. A panic situation arises. In the case of a lockdown, there is a panic button on the side of the Vocera badge. And when that button is hit, it does two things. It opens up a broadcast to a predetermined group of staff. And these staff members also have Vocera badges. So they are listening in on what's happening real time, where the end user initiated the lockdown or pressed the panic button. Simultaneously, Telecenter U is sitting there waiting, and it's reacting to this. In Telecenter U, we have a handful of scenarios built in. We call them emergencies. So in most cases, there's a lockdown. There would be secure. Evacuate in some cases is used. In shelter for dangerous weather or hazardous material. When the panic button is pressed, typically a lockdown is initiated. And when Telecenter U goes into lockdown, there's pre-recorded messages that come overhead from the speakers, so everybody hears what's going on. And with other integrations that we have for Telecenter U, things like access control, those are activated. And typically when that happens, the badge readers are disabled. We want to keep the good people out. And, because in the case of a lockdown, usually the bad people are inside the building. So we don't want to put the good people, teachers or other staff members with badges, we don't want them to be in danger. So we want to keep them out of the building. They may not know what's going on. And there's also burglar alarms that are integrated with Telecenter U. So when Telecenter U goes into lockdown, we also trigger the burglar alarm, and that dials out to 911 in some cases, or monitoring. And that will indicate a panic situation when that happens.
So you have a kind of a seamless handoff between systems. So I'm going to go to Jonathon, and I'm going to want him to paint some word pictures, because some of this will only be on the audio version of the podcast. But for those who are watching via YouTube, you can see the devices. Let's paint a picture of what the experience is like for the staff at the school in an integration like Jonathon just described.
So as Jonathon was describing, the primary differentiators on a Vocera solution is, number one, that you're wearing the device. Number two, and this is really the key, it's voice. The teachers, the administrators, the school resource officers are able to use their voice and to let somebody know what's happening in a dangerous situation. Maybe it's a medical emergency. You can simply press that button and you can call an emergency team. And when it comes to the lockdown integration that we're doing with Lone Star, and even when we started to even kind of paint a picture of what this would be, that there is no other solution in the market today that allows for an individual who is a mobile user, and all teachers are mobile, of course, no matter what school they're in, to initiate a lockdown from wherever they are. So you could be a teacher walking through a hallway and initiate a lockdown. It's no longer having to go to a wall, but it's extending the power of that TCU product to the individual wearer and the individual user. So simply, and this is, credit to Lone Star for the integration work and the engineering work that they did and that we did together to initiate just with a verbal command. So I could say, use a Vocera badge and say, call lockdown. And I keep touching my shirt. This is what the smart badge looks like. So it's this easy device, right? And I press the button, and this was actually
Vocera.
connected to a demo system here in my office. And with that device, with that simple command, you touch this button and you can give a verbal command. And in the case of Lone Star,
I think you said 2. Okay, let's try again.
so now the badge is talking to me. So I can say call lockdown and do that if it's a lockdown situation. If it's not that level of emergency, you leave it to the autonomy of the teacher. You empower those teachers with the ability to say, there's a fight in the hallway. I need help from school resource officer, or I had a student who's having a seizure or cardiac arrest, and I can call the nurse to do that. And then worst case scenario, like we've been talking about, it will actually initiate the protocol within the TCU that starts to set those other protocols in motion that the school has determined.
So since some of our listeners and viewers may not know about Vocera devices, let's talk a little bit about just kind of a high-level view of what the device is, how it does what it does, and let's kind of bring to life some of the capabilities for our listeners.
So this is what we call a smart badge. So smart badge is very small, thin. It's got a couple of buttons. And right in the center, we call it a call button. You press that button to initiate a genie conversation. We call the voice within the Vocera device, we call her a genie. So when you press that button,
Vocera.
call Dane Baxter.
Dane Baxter. Peter Kraslawsky.
Accept call.
Yes. Now there's going to be an echo here, but we have a voice conversation happening.
I'm holding your call.
And Vocera is leveraging the Wi-Fi infrastructure that's already in the school.
Exactly, the one that's already in the school. So we look for a voice grade wireless network. So you are having these conversations across your network. And similar, of course, we all remember the playground and the monkey bars in the playground. And so when you are walking down a hallway, it's similar to being on a monkey bars where you're grabbing hold of one bar and swinging to the next one. That's what the Vocera device is doing with the access points walking down a hallway. So as the connectivity is happening, so you're always having this very seamless conversation with anybody that you're reaching out to who's also wearing a Vocera device. And, Katie, you mentioned earlier before, and Jonathon, I think you did as well, that with a walkie-talkie, you very rarely have everybody in the building who has a walkie-talkie. Most of the time, it's a small percentage of those individuals. But with Vocera and everybody wearing one, you never have to worry about the person who's at the far end of the building. If there's an event on the opposite side of the building, they can be informed and know what's happening if there's an emergency situation or something they need to respond to.
So there's some building blocks to Vocera that I just want to kind of add in for those who don't know. So we have speech recognition. So when somebody touches one of the devices, they are engaged with a very accurate speech recognition technology that is turns the user's spoken commands into things, which is what we're have happening here. And then the other thing that Vocera brings to the table is a kind of a combination, like this directory of all things, whether they be individuals or groups of people, and then the smarts to route things based on what you ask it to do. And those things are not typical for a walkie-talkie.
Yeah, you don't have the same, the downfalls of the walkie-talkie, hearing the chatter. Oftentimes, if you have sitting on your desk, you're turning it down if you're teaching a class. So you never get chatter with Vocera. If you call somebody, they're the one who responds. They're the one who answers. If you're calling a group, you only get that group.
So a lot of what's exciting about what we're talking about today is this combination of platforms, services, software, et cetera. So I'm going to go to Jonathon. So for many schools, overhead paging remains the backbone of communications. Like it's the common denominator. The combined Lone Star, Stryker, Vocera solution offers a lot more than that. Why is it important to bring together all the different communication modalities? So we're talking voice, messaging, marquees, in-room fixed devices, et cetera. And schools are often tight on funding. Why is this type of solution really important today? Jonathon.
Well, that's because it's a one size, or you can call it a one size fits all solution. school districts are always looking for ways to save money. When they can find a solution that covers 2, 3, 4 different problems, I think that's a win for them, because now they're not paying, 4 different vendors for these different solutions when you can have one vendor that provides a single solution and gives them the flexibility they need to handle emergencies and communicate on a daily basis. So it's a money saving solution overall.
And it reflects that different people need to be communicated with in different ways, right? So none of those traditional things go away. They are augmented, reinforced, supported in a way that allows somebody to get the communications in the way that makes the most sense for them. So, Peter, let's go to you. What are some things that our educational customers can expect to see down the road from Vocera? What's coming?
When we talk to educational customers, specifically as they're thinking about security, they're always thinking about security in what I call 4 pillars, right? They're thinking about physical security, that's doors, video cameras, et cetera. They're thinking about school resource officers. They're thinking about training their team and training their staff. And they're thinking about communication. And oftentimes that's the last thing they're thinking about. And what we know from the active shooter situations that have happened across this country is that that's the number one failure point in all of these situations. And so what's coming down the road for Vocera is really continuing to streamline the workflows that are happening in schools. What do those workflows need to look like? And when I say that, I mean, like, who needs to get the alert and alarm notifications? Who needs to get those messages? That's something that's been at core for Vocera for many years. But I really do think the most exciting thing about what's coming down the road for Vocera are the integrations and the types of integrations that we're doing with Lone Star. So to be able to, to integrate all of the different parts and pieces, access control, video camera, PA, all the different things that are happening within a school, and to be able to bring those into a central hub, that has been the core business for Vocera in the healthcare space for the last 20 years. And bringing it into the education space is really exciting. I would say also, when you think about it, like a very clear picture that we're all familiar with, if you remember the details of Uvalde, is there was a door propped open and that shooter was able to walk in from an external door. If you imagine a contact closure on that door, and that door is open at the wrong time of day, and to be able to send a notification to a security team that says, with a visual right here on the badge that says, this is the door that's open, go check that door. You stop these things from happening because no security officer is doing perimeter checks often enough to check every door. And many schools have hundreds, right? The hundreds of doors. So that's that's another example of the kind of integrations that Stryker is working on in the education space.
Great. Hey, Jonathon, before we finish up with Peter, you have anything to add to what he just talked about?
Well, I'd like to, circle back on the voice command features that Peter mentioned earlier. And as I mentioned, Telecenter U has a number of different built-in scenarios. And so, with lockdown, that's typically tied to the panic button on the side of the badge. But you can also use the voice command and say, hey, Vocera, call lockdown. You can use that voice command to activate some of the other scenarios that we have built in to Telecenter U. For example, for hey, Vocera, call evacuate, or hey, Vocera, call secure. And for those of you for those of you that don't know, secure means the threat is outside the building. So that's why we would call secure if staff notices somebody suspicious lurking around in the parking lot, maybe carrying some weapons or something like that. That would be the situation where secure is activated. So you just hit the badge and say, hey, Vocera, call secure. And again, in that situation, access control would lock down. Telecenter U would come on and say, hey, we're going to follow all secure procedures. I just wanted to circle back on that. And also, classrooms have call buttons in a lot of cases. And in normal situations, when you hit that call button, it just goes to the Telecenter U console at the front desk. Sometimes not, there's somebody not sitting there, and it will ring for a long time, and the teachers in the classroom wondering what's going on. So with the integration, we can set up an escalation at the console, and if nobody answers within 10 or 20 seconds, that call will then forward to a Vocera badge or a group of badges. And so somebody is going to get that call, and then the Vocera badge allows you to call back to that room, and you can have a two-way conversation between the Vocera badge and the ceiling speaker in that room.
Yeah, and that's potent. What it does is it creates a kind of overall fabric of protection for the teachers and the students, because it is anticipating the kind of holes that would be in the traditional communications workflow. Well, thank you, Peter and Jonathon. Peter, if our listeners want to know more about Stryker's Vocera solution in education, how can they find out more?
I'll tell you what, in Texas and Oklahoma, they can call Lone Star. So that's been, one of the great things about working with the team is the customer base that they have, and, that they've been great ambassadors for this partnership from an engineering side and from a sales side. Otherwise, you can reach out to Stryker and ask for Vocera, the Vocera team in the K-12 space and education. So we're here for you.
Yeah, and we'll put your contact information in the show notes and on the video podcast. Well, it's been great talking to the both of you today on CarePoints. I encourage our listeners and viewers to hit the like button and subscribe so that you can get notified when we release our next episodes. We'd love for you to subscribe on your favorite podcasting service or visit us on the web at www.lonestarcom.com/podcast. That's www.lonestarcom.com/podcast. Thanks so much for listening.